Hi there, today I'm going to show you how to create a step counter app which I call Stepify, which is going to take record of your steps as you keep on walking and also your distance covered just by clicking on the start button. Alright, and then if you want to reset, you can also click on the reset button. So I'm going to take a quick walk around and let me show you how it works. So I'm walking around and it's taking record of my steps and the distance I've covered. And if I click on the stop button,
you walked 15 steps and covered. You covered 10 meters m.
It starts counting from beginning. So let me show you how I made it. Let's get started. So basically I added a few components that could help me make my app work, and then change the properties to suit in my tests. For example, the screen one property, I change the align horizontal to center, align vertical to center, and change the background color to this green color, which is my test. Then I also change the screen orientation to portrait, and the title I changed to Stepify, as you can see on my screen. Next I added was a label, which I renamed to step label. Checked font bold, change the font size to 18, and then I change the text to your step shows here and the color to white. I also added in a distance label which helps show the distance covered, and then I renamed it to the distance label and did the same thing with the properties for the distance label as I did with the step label. Next I added in a horizontal arrangement and set the height to percent to give a little gap between the distance label and the next label. Next thing I added was the status label. Status label shows if our counter is counting our steps or if it has stopped. So I also did the same thing with the properties as I did for the step and the distance label. And between the status label and the start button, I added in a horizontal arrangement with a height of 4%. And then for the start button, I renamed it to start stop button, and then I changed the background color to this orange color, and checked on font bold size, changed the font size to 18, the height to 80%, and then the text to start. I also changed the text alignment to center and the text color to white. And between the start button and the reset button, I added in another horizontal arrangement and then I set the height to 2%. Lastly, amongst the visible components that I can see on my screen, I added in another button. We call this, I changed the name to reset button, and then I checked font bold, font size 18, and width 80%, shape rounded, and text reset with the text color as white. Now for my non-visible components, I added in a pedometer, and then I also added in a text-to-speech component. So let's move over to the blocks so that we can make our app work. Now the first thing I want to do in my blocks is I want to check if the start stop button is clicked. So I'm going to come here when start stop button clicked. Now like I said, I want my start button to function both as a start and also as a stop button. So I'm going to bring in a condition that if I'm going to bring it if then else. So I'm going to check if the text on the screen, or on the button rather, is start. So if start stop button dot text is equal to, let me go get equal to if the start stop button dot text is equal to start, I'm going to set status label dot text to counting, just going to take this and put this here to cancel. And just delete this. Alright. Also, I want to set the start button dot text. Start button dot text to stop. Next thing I'd like to do is change the background color of our start button to red when the text changes to stop. I'm going to duplicate this, add it under, change this to background color, and then I'm going to add in the color of I want to use. So I'm going to use red when it changes to stop. Colors, change this to red. Alright, now if the text for the start stop button is not start, I will click on that button, then want it to do some other things, which is that we call the pedometer stop to stop our pedometer from counting our steps, and then set the status later to stop. Then this I'm going to also set this text to start, and then I want to set the background color to the color of my choice, which is the orange color that was there initially. So I'm going to go to list, with colors rather. And because the color that I want is not among this color block, I'm going to make a color, get the color of my choice, and then adding the RGB values with this. This would give me the exact orange color that I used for the initial setup of the start stop block. So the next thing I would like to do is to make my pedometer sensor check my steps. In order to do that, I will have to go to the pedometer sensor component and get the when pedometer.walk step. Alright, this is actually the walk step and a simple step. But for this project, I'm going to get the walk step. Let me delete this. Alright, if you notice, there are some blocks already there for us, which is the walk steps, get walk steps, set walk step 2, and the distance. So I'm just going to set the step label, set step label dot text. Now I'm going to make it say something like it's going to call the amount of steps we've made and also add the string steps behind it. I'm going to get the walk steps. But now for me to join them together, I need to get a join block from text blocks. Join get steps. I'm going to add a space and then type steps. And then I'm also going to do the same thing for the distance label. I'm going to get the distance label, set distance label dot text. Now for the distance label, I'm going to make it say something like u dot or u covered, and you're going to say the distance of covered and then add meters, since the unit of distance is meters. I'm going to get the join block, and then I'm going to add in a space so that it can say u covered covered, and then it's going to get my distance and then adding meter. Alright, So it's going to do you covered, get my distance, and add a neatness. Then lastly, for my reset button, when the reset button is clicked, I would want to set the step label to 0 and the distance to 0 as well. Alright, so in order to do that, I just duplicate this, add it here. Instead of get work steps, I'm going to replace it with get to 0 steps rather. And then also for the distance label, I'm going to duplicate this, set distance label to you covered, and then we delete this, and then add it here. Alright, what else should we do? Okay, that reminds me, I added in a text-to-speech component, and I would want it to say something. I wanted to say something whenever we click on the stop button. Probably just say the amount of steps we've covered and the distance that we also covered. So now I'm going to get this text-to-speech component called text-to-speech message, and then I'm going to get in the join block and just come and duplicate this from here. Or rather than use this one, I'm going to use the one above me. Pick it up, add it here. To call text-to-speech to join, I'll probably make it say you walk. Then it's going to get the steps label .text. You walked, because that is amount of steps you walked, and also let me add some more strings under. Alright, so it's gonna say you walk. Probably if you walk like 30 steps, it'll say you walk 30 steps and covered maybe 50 kilometers or 50 meters per se. So duplicate this, you walked the steps and covered, and then correct, but change this to texts and covered, and then I'm going to get this block and add it here. So we're gonna say you walk, call the amount of steps, and covered, call the amount of distance we covered, and that is how it's going to work. That's all. See you next time.